Hello and welcome to Loktantra Chats. As we mentioned before in our introductory episode, we are going to talk about the Constitution of India in this episode. India is celebrating its Independence Day on the 15th of August, as we all know, and its Republic Day on 26th Jan. So, after our independence, a Constitution Assembly was formed, and around it took 2 years to make this Constitution, and it was adopted on 26th Jan, 1915. So today we are going to talk about that and its colonial nature, if we can say. This can be quite controversial, but many people argue that the constitution has a colonial hangover. So let's try to understand that. Okay, so let's start with what is a constitution and how important it is for a nation.
Actually, that's a very good question because the way a nation is governed, typically it is the constitution that forms the founding document. Now, before we understand what is a constitution, we have to understand why it is required. Now, let me go back in history a bit. So, in long time ago, when we had kings, the kings believed that they were the rightful descendants of God on the planet Earth.
Okay.
So they could do anything. Okay. So there was, everything God is created, they are God's son or daughter or whatever. So it is theirs. So other people have no business. Okay. So if they want something, they can actually take anything that they want. Now this became a problem with, king is not the only person who fights, right? So king had the power, but when you look at the amount of power one person will have, it is the power of the army. It is not just one person.
Right.
So,
the ministers, soldiers, etc.
The soldiers. Mostly it was the power, might is right kind of a philosophy. So you had the power of the king coming from the army. And army people were ready to fight for him or her. But when he started taking things from the people of the army only, then it created a problem. So the army people wanted some protection against the king. Now this became the founding document called Magna Carta, where the king is prevented from taking all the resources of the people who finance him. Okay, the landlords. So this is the Magna Carta, which is the founding document of modern democracy, and you can say the root document from which all further constitutions came to be defined. Okay. Now this, before that also we had Magna Carta is in United Kingdom. You may have heard of the Robin Hood story. So Magna Carta is somewhere after Robin Hood. Okay. Now when you look at that document derives its sort of philosophical beings from Greece and other places where people, which means free people who had land, had power. Okay. And the kings could not just take away everything. That was the principle. Then this principle, came into the French Revolution, the Renaissance in Europe in a big way. And when you found that people started imposing that king cannot do anything, which is illegal. So what is the document that bound the king? So this constitution became a document that bound the person or people group who is holding power. Now the first constitution technically is the constitution of a small country called San Marino or something. It's an Italian micronation which got its constitution in 1600. And it is still working as a constitution. But the real constitution that we call was created in America, the famous Constitution of United States. And there are many movies also on that, where the document is stolen or the document is read and there are hidden meanings.
Is that a painting which is a very famous one where people are standing aside and one person is signing the document?
Yes. That is the photo or depiction of the signing of the Declaration of Independence in America and the Constitution being signed. That document became, subsequent to that document, the French Constitution came. Then there were constitutions in various countries within Europe. Then we had some, sort of a bunch of constitutions from which we can derive the definition of what is a constitution. So essentially today, the modern constitution, after making so many constitutions across the country, across the world, French have made 2-3 constitutions. It's the fifth republic of the French. So they have made few constitutions. After considering all this, we know that constitution is a document which creates the state, okay,
Right.
which defines the rights of the people. It defines the limits of power of the state over the people. Okay. The next part the constitution does is defines the arms of the state, like whether it will have a parliament, whether it will have a king, who will be what kind of parliament, 2-house parliament, 1-house parliament, whether it will have states, whether it will have a separate judiciary, one judiciary, whether it will have administrative officers, whether it will have a controller and auditor general, whether it will have army, who will the army report to. All these things are defined in the constitution.
Yeah, to
So
simplify, we
constitution,
have 3 arms, right? One is the judiciary, one is the legislature, and the other is
and one
the
is the executive.
administration, executive.
Yes, executive. So government is the executive. Okay. So government is the functioning arm of the parliament. Parliament is the brain. Government is the body which works on the direction of parliament. So it is like government asks the parliament what parliament wants to do, and then parliament says government should implement tax reform. Then so it is people are the same, so sometimes it gets misunderstood. But government is a separate entity from the parliament. In America, once you become a part of the government, you sit separately. You sit in the White House. The parliament, their parliament sits in the Capitol building, and the government is under the president. Okay. So the president cannot directly talk to the parliament. Meaning he can directly talk, but officially the parliament has to send a message to the president, ki you do this. Or president sends a message to the parliament saying ki I want to attack Iraq. The parliament says no. The Congress, it is called US Congress. It says yes or no. President says I want to give money to people. Congress says no. These kinds of difference of government and parliament is there in US. In UK and therefore in India, we don't have that difference. The government of ministers also sit in the parliament. So
it's
that's
getting a little bit confusing for me now. Look, firstly, I thought the Robin Hood story was just a story. Now I came to know that it was a real thing. But firstly, let's talk about, do we need a constitution? Because a general understanding will be, of course, because we must know who is doing what are the institutions, how will they communicate with each other, how will they communicate with the general public. This is all what is in there in the constitution in a gist. But there are countries, what I know is United Kingdom doesn't have a codified constitution, a written constitution. So are there countries who don't have a constitution at all?
So you're absolutely right. United Kingdom doesn't have a codified constitution. What it has are norms. So basically customs and norms that have dictated the practice of the British state that they use as the guiding principles of constitution. So just like United Kingdom, Canada, who's also part of the the Commonwealth, and New Zealand, they don't have a written constitution.
It's still a part of Commonwealth, right?
Yeah, we are always part of Commonwealth, but the feature of Commonwealth where the country also accepts the Queen of England or the King of England now as the monarch, their own monarch. That is not there. So Australia no longer accepts King Charles as their monarch. I mean, they didn't accept Queen Elizabeth also, but I'm saying they don't accept the UK king or queen as their head. Earlier they used to. So the technical effect is that whenever a law is passed so just like in India, president is the head of everything. The king is the head of everything. So after all the laws are passed, they go to king for approval, meaning he token signs it. And in return of that, he gets some salary. Okay. Now he doesn't get the salary. That's the main thing. So So Israel and Saudi Arabia also do not have constitutions, written constitutions, unless you want to call the Sharia as the Saudi constitution or something like that. But there is no traditional constitution in Saudi Arabia. Israel also doesn't have a written constitution. China is a unique case where China has the Communist Party has a sort of a document, founding document and detailed document, but the country doesn't have. So China is the property of CCP, Communist Party of China. That's how the mechanism works. The Communist Party has a document, but China doesn't have a document.
I was just wondering, what was the case before the printing press was invented? So, we started writing because there were civilizations which existed at that time as well. So, how
exactly
did they work?
So mostly, if you see the old tribal system, there is a repository in terms of a oral tradition, in terms of stories. Okay, so these stories form, you have something like Aesop's fables. You have lots of stories which are related to administration, which are related to kings, which are related to this. They form a guide for the person who is ruling. So it is a sort of a, what you can say, loose principles which are controlling the king in form of stories. So whenever the king does something, people remind him of a story because that story is quite well known. It is generally, well understood. And then, so in India also, many of these, the myths part of our tradition, they are derived from certain stories which have moral or, governance kind of learnings for the king or everyone, okay, how to govern. So what happens when you do injustice? Then, you get punishment. So, like that.
Interesting. So, are there such stories in Panchatantra also?
Yeah, Panchatantra, Jataka, everywhere. But a lot of these, like when you look at the body of these kinds of oral traditions, many of them are moral, like ethical, moral stories. There are some which are particularly governance based, but there are few.
Right. So this was there when there was no written form of documents which used to govern the society.
Right.
But after few maybe centuries or decades, there were documents in India as well which were helped for governing a particular society, like the Arthashastra, Yajnavalkya Smriti. There is Manusmriti, which is a quite controversial document. Some people have made it. But yeah, so these were actually documents which were used for governance. And Arthashastra also, as it was written by Kautilya or Chanakya, it was not the first Arthashastra. Okay, so Chanakya,
it was not, yes.
Yeah. So Chanakya had compiled many other Arthashastras which were there before him.
Exactly.
Yeah. So please tell us more about these documents.
So, one of the earliest documents that you have to understand everything that, many of these documents are destroyed. Okay. So we don't have a lot of these documents. So probably 80% of our literature has been destroyed. So we are not talking about 20%. When they talk about some book which we don't have access to, we say, oh, there was such a book. And then we realize that is missing. Okay. Otherwise, we don't even know that such a book was there and it is missing. So the first popular reference you have is in Ramayana, when you have Ravan talking to Lakshman and Vibhishan about how to govern a state. Okay. So that is one reference. In Mahabharata, the similar reference is there where Bhishma is talking to Pandavas. Okay. There are instances where Vidur and Bhishma are debating about state policy. So these are some elements which are there and they can be compiled into some sort of a, detailed thesis. Then there are documents like Dharma Shastra, which have been updated, and these are like you should consider most of these document as, evolved thesis. So there must be 15 Dharma Shastras before 15 versions, and this must be the 16th or 20th. We don't know, because many of them are missing. And so when we say ki Dharma Shastra is that's what we have, it doesn't mean ki it is the be all and end all. It's not like, a Bible. You can amend it, you can improve it, you can make, suppose this version 20th, you can make version 21, version 22 and improve it. So there is nothing stopping you. But understand and improve. Don't just slap, don't just edit something which you don't know. That's the only thing.
That is what is needed, because the society keeps on evolving, keeps on changing. So
exactly. So you cannot. In one of the things that I always talk about, some people believe if Chanakya was there today, he would still use those leaves and write the Arthashastra. No, he would use a laptop. He would type it on the laptop. Why would he use a leaf? So, and he will use all the modern knowledge that is available to him and develop something that is looking in the future. So, Chanakya's Arthashastra, when we evaluate, it's like, no, it is it's like a Bible. It's not like a Bible. Sorry. It is the learning up to that time. And it is the best learning, you can say. It still holds,
at that time.
There are many, So 2000 years later also, it has a lot of learning, you can derive from it. But that doesn't mean that Chanakya will write the same Arthashastra today. He will write even more improved version. He will say that use iPhone or use, Pixel and manage your time, set alarm for 4 a.m. or 3 p.m., 3 a.m., whatever, He will write that also. Who says that he won't? So my point is that these documents have evolved and they should continue to evolve. And these documents have been used as a guideline for kings, and sometimes they have used as a limitation on the kings. So if you see in Indian culture, the kings have, as you grow in power, your rights and get limited and your duties expand. So it's not like in the West. In the West, as you grow in power, your rights expand and your duties are optional. I mean, duties are optional, rights are, you can have anything that you want. Because king can do no wrong. In Britain, there is a principle, the king can do no wrong. So that's why you need a constitution to say that no, king can do wrong if he is not following these things. Okay, so that is the reason for existence of constitution, which protects the people from the king.
Okay.
So,
moving on to 1947 or 1950. So this Constituent Assembly was formed after independence, and they made this constitution. Why is it called a colonial? There is a book named Colonial Constitution written by R.K. Sen Gupta. He's a lawyer, and it had some interesting points. One of the important points which I remember, I haven't read the full book, but from what I have read, one of the important points is that the Constitution of India was adopted, around 2/3 of it was adopted from Government of India Act, and this act was written by the Britishers before independence. So that is the main reason why it is a colonial document. You go ahead with other points you have about why it is colonial.
No, in fact, everyone should read that book, Colonial Constitution. The first part, I didn't like the second part as much as the first part of the book. But definitely first part is worth reading, and it will tell you a lot of things about how Constitution came to be. So for example, you imagine this, that all the members of the Constituent Assembly were lawyers who had studied in Britain. Okay. So they had been, coming from that mentality. They had learned of the British system. There was no, influence of Indic practices in this. Now, if you find that there are some people who studied British law, who were not at all connected with India, meaning they were Indians, but they were like Britishers, brown sahibs, as people call them. And there were people who were rooted to Indian culture. and there was not enough material to sort of compare and contrast the Indian system of law with the British system, or understand that still research needs to be done as to what is the British system, what is the Indian system, and how is. So they only had access to a well-established knowledge base of British system. They had a Government of India Act, which in fact allowed or limited the power of British Parliament in ruling India. So they thought that this is a good starting point. Okay. Now there were many such differences that you had to make, and that job was left to a person called B.N. Rao. Now B.N. Rao was it was called the Indian Civil Services that time, British time. He was a civil servant in the British India who was in charge of implementing the Government of India Act. Okay. But he was very rooted person and very smart also. So he effectively became the navigator for our Constituent Assembly. So while we say that Babasaheb Ambedkar is the founding father, I mean, you can say he was the chairman of the committee that of the Constituent Assembly. But the real mastermind, you can say, is B.N. Rao. Okay. Now, B.N. Rao had an extensive knowledge and research of all the different constitutions, including American, French, Swedish, Swiss. And he created a detailed questionnaire, which I think, everyone should, at least the lawyers should look at. The questionnaire that B.N. Rao gave to every member of the Constituent Assembly. Okay. And as a guide, he also gave some multiple choices. What kind of parliament do you want? Do you want something like a Swiss option? Do you want something like a British option? Do you want something like American? Do you want something like Irish? This, that. He had given some options. Okay. Which are sort of pointers for the members of the Constituent Assembly to sort of introspect and, think through. Do we really think there is a Swiss model which can be adopted in India? Will it apply to Indian reality? But our mindset is when you have multiple choice, we tick one, right? So our Constituent Assembly members mostly ticked one. Okay, in all these questions. Yes. And that is the result. In effect, that's why our Constitution seems hodgepodge. It seems like we have borrowed this from there, borrowed this from there. Now, if you read the questionnaire, it becomes evident why it is so. And then this was fitted onto the Government of India Act of 1935. Now, Government of India Act 1935 also derives from Government of India Act 1919. Okay. Which is, which was the first attempt of Indians to regulate power of British Parliament to rule India. 1935 was the second attempt.
Okay.
Constitution in India is the third attempt. I mean, as a joke, but in that sense, it's a colonial continuity. It's a version, like if you say Microsoft version 1, Word ka first version hai, Word ka second version hai, Word ka third version hai. So it is Word only. It is, the version has changed. Some new features have been added, old features have been deleted, but it's Word only. Microsoft Word.
Version 3, it is subconsciously done. We don't think that it is
exactly. Now I'll tell you how it is done. Okay. Now, if you see the objective of the British, so East India Company, which was the first British controller of India, they were ruling it like a fiefdom. Okay, it was a company property. Okay. Just like Tata's have a steel plant, East India Company had India. Okay, it's nothing like, there is no separation. Okay, Tata's had steel plant, East India Company had India. Reliance has the oil refinery, East India Company has the entire India for its operation. It had its own army, it had its own governance structure, own salary structure. One of the richest companies in the world ever. Even now, it would be valued, probably 100 or 5,000 times more than the Apple or Microsoft, which are the highest valued companies today. Okay. So when you look at that company, it was operating like a company. So then it became the British government. But the idea was the same: extract wealth from India and send it to Britain. So they created institutions like, police. They created institutions like collectorates, officers which man the secretarial staff. Everything is the same in Government of India. It's the same in Constitution of India also. The police system is the same.
Mhm.
The collector office is the same. Collector office used to call everyone. Today also, not today, a few months back, they wanted to acquire this land for the Navi Mumbai airport. The collector called everyone. Come to my office. Order of collector. Arey, boss, you are not the ruler. You are the servant. That mindset is still not, because the mechanisms, processes, systems, procedures, they are all the same. This is where the colonial element is embedded into the Indian state. It is not in the Government of India. That is a fluffy act which says this is there, that is there. You go to court, you will get justice. You don't get justice if the same justice is given to you after 20 years. Right?
That's
You want to marry.
You have opened.
Exactly. So now imagine a person wants to marry another person. Okay. He applies to the court. Court gives permission after 20 years. What is the use?
He's like, I married
He
someone
applied
else,
and
and I have a 10-year-old kid also.
No, I'm saying there is a process where under the Marriage Act, Special Marriage Act, you have to apply to permission of the Registrar of Marriage to get married. Suppose the registrar gives permission after 20 years, then what is the use? Similarly, you get justice after 20 years. It's of no use. Meaning ultimately, so those things are embedded in the system, and those are the colonial elements. So the Constitution philosophically derives from the British system. That is the first part of the colonial Constitution. The second is the mechanisms in which the Constitution is implemented. Those are extractive, and they are definitely and entirely British. Till we change these mechanisms in which the law is applied onto the people, we will not get a purely Indian constitution. So if you go in Britain, if you are a British citizen has a right against his government. In India, the government has a right against you. That's a difference, because the British government owned India, and they wanted to show that in every part of the administrative procedure. That's why you have to sign in triplicate. That's why you can't simply call the police and then they do there is some robbery going on. They don't come. You have to file a written application to commissioner, this, that. Then they say, oh, okay.
No, like if I complain to
robbery, they will come. Robbery, they will come. But if there is a fraud being done, let's say if some person is occupying government land, encroaching on government land, try to get police to vacate him. Police will not do that. It's a civil matter. You file a complaint in the court, file writ petition, file PIL. Like that they will do. For robbery, at least, hopefully they will come. But like in Hindi movies, they come at the last, after the fight is over. I will tell you that there was a guy beating a woman under the VSNL building, which is about 1 kilometer away from Bombay High Court. Okay. Across the VSNL building in Mumbai, there is a police chowki. Okay. So I called 100 number because I saw him beating the woman right on the footpath. Okay. Nobody picked up. Okay. I walked to the chowki. The chowki says the chowki inspector, he came out. He saw that there is a guy beating a woman. He was, watching whether this is the domestic dispute, whether he should intervene. I said, it's a public place. On the footpath, some guy is beating a woman.
Huh. Even if it's a domestic dispute, it's his responsibility. to tell.
Exactly. But who will tell him? He took my number and he said, okay, I will check. I will call control room. This, that. He was not even in proper dress. He said, where's your cap? Cap. It was inside. He was outside. So, okay, fantastic.
So, coming back to the constitution, so you said that there were people who were rooted in the Indic culture as well. So, like, have you gone to the constitutional assembly debates, and did you find anyone recommending to refer our ancient documents as well, like the Arthashastra and Smritis, Dharmashastras, etc.? Because these are like an encyclopedia in itself. I have read Arthashastra to some extent, and I have heard about Dharmashastra. So there was this lawyer called, his name is P.V. Kane, and he has written history of Dharmashastra. Like, that is in volumes, like multiple volumes. And that is the history of Dharmashastras. So if we take it literally, I don't know how vast Dharmashastras would be. So if we have such huge volumes of like documents which were used for governing societies, why did we not refer it? And did anyone not suggest referring these documents?
See, it was not like that. So what you need is a philosophical debate which leads to certain ideas which come up. Okay. And then you can make a choice between different kinds of ideas and debate whether these ideas are good or bad. What we had was we suddenly became independent. Okay. It was not our freedom struggle or anything. The British just it was too costly to govern India, because now India, they had sucked out all the wealth, and now they had to provide money to support Indians, which was, too much, because they did not have money after World War II. So they simply said, now that this plant is depreciated, we'll throw it away. So that's how they left. Now, when we got independence in 1947, there was no such, thought process. We did not have enough time to create a thought process. This is a decades of work which need to, go into this. There has to be a social debate. There has to be, intelligent journalists who will highlight the correct issue after reading the document, unlike CA, where they don't even read the 2-page act. Imagine reading a whole philosophy of law, that is Indian philosophy of law, and then British or the Western philosophy, and then having a comparative analysis, and then debating how it will affect the society. It's too much.
So, moving ahead, what is the way forward? Like, how can we decolonize the constitution? And do you think it is the need of the hour, at least now, that we must decolonize? And is the political environment in favor of it?
I think people are realizing that there is a need to decolonize the constitution. People are sort of appreciating our constitution is not fully Indic or Bharatiya, though the constitution has drawings of Ramayana, and it's very rooted in terms of the in the design of the paper and the design of how it is written, but the content is still not very Indic. But is it the right time? That is a question which we need to answer in a much more sensible and much more responsible manner. There is reason, because first of all, we do not understand what our Indic history is. It has been messed up in multiple ways. There has been manipulations, and I think we need a lot more research into what our Indic history was. Okay. And where we came from. Now, another aspect is, like I was telling you earlier, if Chanakya was there today, he would use a laptop.
Of course.
It just because our history is saying something, we have to be confident to say that, okay, we are the inheritors of this history. And therefore, in a modern context, our state should look like this. Till we have that confidence, how will the confidence come? It will come through research. First, what were we? In this modern context, how the Indic concept of a state would be. What would be our rulers, our government look like? What would be their responsibilities? Would it be like Amatya Rakshas? Or would it be like, Greek minister? Would it be like a British minister? Would it be like an Indic minister? Would it be like in Ramayana time? Would it be like in Mahabharata time? So how would
for
we...
those who don't know, Amatya Rakshas was not a Rakshas as you know. It was
Yes,
just a name given to, I guess, a minister or some
Prime Minister of
bureaucratic
Nanda.
Nanda
He was the
dynasty.
Prime Minister of King Nanda. And in that Mudra Rakshas, it depicts how Chanakya was trying to recruit Amatya Rakshas after he had replaced King Nanda. And Amatya Rakshas thought Chanakya is the enemy. And Chanakya had captured his family and brought him to negotiations. And his term for negotiation was that you become the prime minister. So he said, what kind of negotiation is this? You're holding my family hostage and then you're asking me to be your prime minister. He said, because you are more interested in development, yes, and you have the national interest in mind, you are the right person. So this kind of a vision, that's a Mudra Raksha story. Is it true? Is it not true? That's a separate argument with historians another time we can have. But, are we looking at a prime minister? Are we looking at a council of ministers through this lens? And we don't know what values they were expected. Because in dharmic tradition, if you see, the higher the responsibility, higher your power, higher the, command that you get, the more responsibilities and more, you have to be more strict with your duties. You cannot move away. Most of your responsibilities are like, predetermined. You have no control of your personal liberty goes for a toss because you have higher responsibilities towards the nation, towards population. So how to determine that and bring it to modern constitution? So I think we need to research that. We need to build all these opinions that this is how a modern state should look like. And once there is enough confidence, then we should tamper with this document and build out a completely new constitution. That is why, when I take hope from the French Republic, because after France became a republic, that is, they killed the emperor and the queen, they got the first republic. Okay. Then that first republic did not meet whatever the French aspirations were. Then they got the second one. Today we have the fifth French republic. So they have multiple republic days, if you want to call it. But they don't celebrate, I don't know if they celebrate all the republic days, but they have this is the fifth republic. So it is not bad, particularly with a country like India, which has a long history. See, United States can have just one constitution because it is born 200 years ago, 250 years ago. Okay, we have to account for historical mindset, historical development of thought, of philosophies, of science, which is spanning 10,000 years. So we can't start from, again. We can use this knowledge to create a better answer to this question of what Indic constitution should look like. But we need to do it in a research-based manner. We can't just simply say, okay, let's destroy the constitution, create another one. And when we make this new constitution, like we discussed, the constitution is just a document. Its implementation lies in that institutional structure, the way the police officer sits in the city or his police station and he thinks of himself. That mindset will have to go and change. Maybe we can just change the mindset for now.
Yeah, that is required. That is more important. Because even if we
Yes,
have the best document, as Ambedkar himself had said, the people who will implement it, if they are not like well versed, or they have no best intentions, then it's of no use, even if they have the best document.
exactly. And think about it this way: when the Constituent Assembly was formed, India was in 500 pieces. There were like 500 some princely states. There was
Hmm.
the British India.
Hmm.
There was parts which were in Portuguese control. There was Pakistan, which was separated. There was Bangladesh, which was separated. There was Burma, which was separated. Nepal and these kingdoms were another three which are lying around. So in that situation, I'm not sure that Constituent Assembly was confident enough to build a document that would. They were not sure of India. I mean, none of the people in the world were sure that India will survive as a country.
Right.
So when
Also,
we go
most of
back
the
to
members,
94,
yeah, most of the members were educated in the British educational system. So,
yeah,
what more can we expect?
no, not just that, but you can see, yes, we were a country, everything is accepted, but lot of it is lost. British have
Hmm.
controlled your mind. They have manipulated the thing. There is Islamic influence everywhere. There is, a freedom struggle which has created some sort of a new literature. And we were not sure, like how to manage this. Now, there were some clear things which we missed. Okay. Like Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan from Northwest Frontier Province, which is in Afghanistan now. He said, we want to be part of India.
Yeah, yeah. I think
And
it
Gandhi
was
said,
there
no,
was a referendum, Kashmir ka referendum, right?
no, Kashmir is separate. It was in Northwest
Sorry,
Frontier Province in Afghanistan.
the Pakistan ka referendum, I guess. Who
Yeah,
wants to be in
yes,
the
yes.
Pakistan camp?
Yes, yes, yes. And these kinds of mismatches have been like, and it's not like Bacha Khan, he died in 1980 or something. Okay, he was alive during the post-independence. And
Hmm.
he said, you have given us to the wolves
Hmm.
by adding us to with Pakistan. So he was completely aware of the sort of the geopolitical integration of the country, but our leaders were not. So imagine the kind of mindset and confusion there was. And in that thing, you are designing a constitution. So if you design it wrong, assume that, you in your enthusiasm design something wrong and everything breaks down. There was a good chance. So
Yeah,
I think they just did a continuity project rather than a reinvention project.
yeah. So, like,
And
we can't just keep on blaming the framers of the constitution for it. Like,
in fact,
it,
I'm thinking that, yeah, in fact, I'm thinking they were quite responsible. They did not
yeah,
know.
and it was kind of a okay-ish constitution. It's not. It
It wasn't
wasn't
okay.
great. Yeah,
It was exactly. It's not great, but it's not bad.
yeah.
I
It's
mean,
not bad.
consider from where it was made, when it was made, in the situation that it was made. It was quite a good starting point.
Right.
Okay, we messed it up in 1975. I mean, we means Indira Gandhi messed it up in 1975 even further. But it was not a bad constitution to start off. Okay.
Yeah.
The second thing is that some people in India, we believe that just like in US, people say that constitution means you cannot touch it.
Hmm.
Even our Supreme Court has got that kind of mindset. Constitution is like, you cannot touch it. No.
It's the Bible.
Constitution, that's why I'm very happy that Macron is coming for 26 January.
Hmm.
On Republic Day, our guest is the French
French Prime
president,
Minister.
who is the fifth, who is the
Republic.
president of the Fifth Republic, which tells you a story that, a US was created out of a philosophy. Okay.
Hmm.
In our case, our philosophy was only confused. Are we British inheritors of Commonwealth? Are we, whatever? Are we the freedom fighters of 1857? Are we inheritors of that legacy? Are we inheritors of, Lord Ram? Are we who are we? That question was not answered philosophically. Once you answer it philosophically, you will come to a dharmic awareness. Yes, we have some awareness, dharmic awareness during that time. But is it the best option forward? And that is what, that's why Indian Constitution, you see, there are so many amendments that some people say it's a joke. It's not a joke, because when we started, there was a legitimate concern. And whatever it is, today you are one country. Okay. All the princely states have, credit to Sardar Patel for that. But today you are one country, you are economically integrated, developing very fast. Now you have the confidence. Now you will have the research. Now you will have the mindset to find out where exactly this colonial mindset is sitting in, and how to eliminate it step by step, and how to create a constitution that is truly in Indic flavor.
Yeah. Also, in the economic state we were in 1947, we can't even imagine how many problems we were facing and what all things were needed to be done on immediate basis. So the
Exactly.
leaders from in 1947 and after that have done a pretty commendable job, because now we are in a state from a developing country we are moving towards a developed country, and the most important powers in geopolitics are looking forward to India. Getting to this stage in 75 years is a big thing, because not most of the countries who were colonized and who got independence in that period have done that.
Exactly. See, you are exactly right. And there's a reason. See, if you start from poor, you can become rich. You have one set of mindset. Okay, you have one set of motivation. But if you have been rich and you have been destroyed and become poor, to create that resurgence, it takes longer.
Right.
Okay. If you were poor to start with and you're building slowly, exactly, it's a different mindset.
Yeah.
And if you have been poor, if you've been rich, and not just rich, you were the wealthiest country in this world. People used to call you the golden sparrow, Sone ki chidiya. And there were debates in Rome and Greece about why so much gold is going to India, because they are importing so much of our product. And from that point, you come to a stage where, you can't even feed your people.
Yeah, completely devastated.
From that, and, to start from that again, and to, first integrate people, then align them in action, you have to grow.
Take care of the basic necessities like food.
Exactly. Even now, we might be growing fast, but still we have poor and we have to take care of them.
Yeah.
So,
but now there are policy issues, and the problem is with the people. At least we have food. The food surplus nation is there. We have food, but
exactly.
It has not reached where it is supposed to be.
It will grow slowly. The thing is, that's what, it's like, it's like in cricket, you have had so many wickets falling very quickly. Okay, now wickets are not falling, and we are scoring, but we are still not winning. To win, we'll have to build a little more. It's not like immediately we have to start celebrating. It's a long way to go.
Right.
So we are in a much better place than when we started in 1947. In 1975, people should, remember this. There was a point in 1975 where we could have become a dictatorship and broken into multiple countries. It was just a quirk of fate, meaning you can say the blessings of our forefathers or whatever it is, or that the nation sided on this side, and, we are progressing as a country. Indira Gandhi was going to create a big mess in that point in history. And luckily, we fell on this side of the wall. Okay. But we fell. Okay. We didn't, we broke bones or whatever, the process, the democracy was damaged. And the reversal of that happened only, recently. When the electronic voting machines came, fair and transparent elections became a norm. And credit to TN Session, who brought these reforms. And, then we are now we had a hodgepodge because we didn't know कि fair elections may, you don't get a single largest majority without addressing, you just can't bulldoze your way, steal some ballot papers, and get into the government. You have to actually address the needs of the people.
Right.
And now we are in a state where people are saying, okay, if you address the needs of what we are, our aspirations, we will vote you in power. But perform. People are expecting performance. At state elections, you've seen that, if you don't perform, you're out. Nobody. You may be BJP, you may be Congress, you may be AAP or whatever. If you do not perform, you're out.
Yeah, आप कोई भी हो. If you don't
आप कोई भी.
Okay. So, but what if like steps are taken in that direction? What do you think? Like, what comes to your mind? Like, these are the main important features which must be given first preference in the constitution, and try to change that according to the roots of this culture.
So from if you see our constitution, from our constitution, you need at least, I can see that at least you need administrative IAS and this reforms, the Indian Administrative Service, the IAS, IPS, IFS, including state, like UPSC, MPSC, all these
services.
Administrative services at state and central level, they need a reform. They need a big reform in terms of what they are taught, in terms of what can be their role and what they have to deliver. Okay. And because they have a tremendous amount of colonial hangover in that institution. Okay. Then the judicial reform. Now, I'm not saying, there's the judicial, appointments, commission and all that. That is a separate thing. But what are you training the judges?
Yeah.
What are you teaching the lawyers? That is a big reform to be undertaken. Okay.
And judiciary is accountable to whom?
Yeah, exactly. No, judiciary has become, and this is another thing, this has become a new religion. Okay, constitution, under the name of constitution, judiciary believes that they are the priests of this new religion. Constitution is their holy book. And, you have to dress up and in this, weird way and chant some prayers. Only then the priest will oblige the popes and the padris of the new religion called constitutionalism. And this is not just in India, it's everywhere. People are trying to use the laws to break the spirit of the laws. So it is not we have to be alert to this, and the judges also have to be alert to this. And that's why when we bring in new kinds of judges, okay, who have general appreciation of the dharmic roots of the country, then you will have more development. So in fact, the third leg, that is the first leg is administrative services, then judicial. Third leg is education. You need to reform education in a big manner because our education is completely, messed up. So once you do that, then you will realize that the police officers start serving the country. The district collector starts serving their district. The local circle officer, the ward officer is working for betterment of the ward. Automatically problems will reduce. This agent culture will go away. For every government officer, there are 20 agents trying to influence how he works. That will go away. Anna Hazare, for all his faults and whatever, he said that, these government officers are here to serve us. They should not get this impression that they are our rulers. And he was absolutely right. He was absolutely spot on.
Like, we can have a 3-4 hour long discussion on this topic actually, because I have gone through a lot of it. About
yes, your personal experience. I know.
Yeah.
No, and once you improve this, our constitution and its applicability, and we do the research as to what an Indic constitution should be like, then we can debate and create an Indic constitution, and then we can say, India the second republic, and create the new constitution. I think it is there. I don't know if it will happen on the 100th anniversary, but definitely 125th anniversary you can have.
Okay. For the listeners and the viewers, if you are not getting when we talk about colonization or coloniality, instead of just looking like googling the term, you can read the book India that is Bharat. The author J. Sai Deepak has covered this topic in quite detail, and it is a very good book if you want to understand colonialism, coloniality. I didn't even know that these are two different terms before reading that book. So, and you will come to know about the history of the constitution itself. Like, he hasn't discussed constitution directly in that book, but it is covered in the second book, I suppose. So that is one good reference you can refer to. Apart from that, let's end this conversation. We will discuss Atal Bihari Vajpayee's decisions and his projects in the next episode. So stay tuned for the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you.